Board meeting and public hearing to order. Please rise and salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Emergency exits are behind our attorney's chair and also the door you came in. Roll, please.
Councilman Gutierrez.
Here.
Councilwoman Doyle.
Here.
Supervisor Perotti.
Here.
Councilman Delango.
Here.
And Councilwoman Hitzberger is going to be late.
Okay, make a motion to open the hearing on the Cablevision merger. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilwoman, skipping her. Councilman Delango.
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez.
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle.
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti.
Yes. Are there any comments on the proposed Cablevision merger with Altice?
I'm the only one?
I think so.
No.
I don't see anybody rushing behind you, so.
Sharon Kroger. I want to say this about Cablevision. We've had this for some time, and one of the problems initially, when the first contract was made, it was pointed out by people who lived up in, I think mostly in Smithfield, but maybe in other parts of town, that they would not provide the service to everyone. And that was a mistake at the time, and frankly, the town board should never have signed off on that until they made sure that everyone had access. Because in the flow of information that democracies need, you've got to be able to have access to information. And what it meant was that for many years, we had a town where some of the people got to see the television and others didn't. And I think it made for lopsided participation, frankly, and I think it wasn't a good idea. Now, when the next go-round, every 10 years or so, there was a change. And this could have been remedied, but the supervisor at the time and the town board didn't see fit to intervene and do that. What I'm going to ask you now is that you don't automatically sign something, but you make sure that it's fair to all the citizens before you sign off on it. And if that means showing the rest of us a copy of these documents, maybe we should all study a little bit. I'm not unwilling to do that. But I'd like to see a fairer contract so that it isn't lopsided in the town. Thank you.
Are there any other comments regarding the Cablevision merger? Are there any from the town board?
Yeah, and we have a representative here tonight from Cablevision, and there have been a number of articles in the press about Altice, and New York City is currently reviewing the takeover of the franchise there. Part of the commitment to the shareholders of Altice has been $900 million in savings, and in other places where Altice has come in and taken over a franchise, typically that's resulted in sort of service cuts and raising prices and generally things that have been seen unfavorable. So, sure, yeah, sorry. I'm just wondering if there's some commitment to continuing the level of quality of service that we have here in the town today through our existing service. Any comment on plans to raise prices or anything to that effect? Yeah.
No, you need to speak there. Everybody wants to hear what you have to say.
There are, at this stage of the game, there are no plans to adjust prices according to what this merger may result in as far as what Altice wants to do and what Cablevision wants to do. and rates have never been part of franchise agreements between cable operators and municipalities. So I really can't speak to what may or may not happen down the road. But I have heard the same, I have read the same news reports that you have read regarding what Altice has done in Europe, not in the U.S. They've only had one acquisition in the U.S., and that was a company called Suddenlink in the Midwest. And it hasn't reached a stage yet. It's just been approved, so it hasn't reached a stage where they have taken any type of operations management control or decisions or anything like that. They've let the company continue to operate the way it's always operated. The franchise agreement with the town stays intact. Every provision that's in there that Cablevision agreed to, I think it was about 7 years ago, will continue to be enforced with regard to the merger or however this new company comes together.
Is there a chance then, when this contract does expire, based on your experience working with cable providers, is that the time that we could argue our case for extending service to the rest of the town that isn't currently being served?
Yes. What Ms. Kroger was saying with regard to Smithfield, I was actually involved in those negotiations when that contract was put together. And I recall at the time that one of the factors that was looked at, and what should be continued to look at, is the number of homes per mile that the cable operator agrees to build out to. And that's in the franchise agreement, and it's a public document. And I can't rely 100% on my recollection, but I seem to recall that at the time, not just Amenia, but the neighboring communities have one of the lowest homes per mile penetration of anywhere in the footprint of Cablevision. And that's because Cablevision was aware at the time that there is a greater distance between homes, particularly in the Smithfield area. And so looking at the future of cable television and how Cablevision, how cable infrastructure is built, taking a look at that density requirement is something I would recommend that the town do when it comes up again in the renewal process.
Thank you.
You
Now,
have
when
a question?
when these prices get set, all right, they have to go through the FCC and some kind of commission before you raise your prices or do anything with your prices, right?
The State Public Service Commission can review and control the basic broadcast rate. That's the lowest tier of service that is provided by a cable operator. With regard to the cost of internet, the cost of premium channels, it's a what the market will bear type of approach.
But now on these franchise agreements, when we discuss these franchise agreements, we're not discussing cost or anything like that.
Correct.
Are we?
No.
No. So it's not like Amenia has one deal, the town of Dover has another deal, or anything like that as far as the franchise agreement goes?
Correct.
Okay.
Jean?
I have actually a couple of questions, possibly for you. A couple of things about Cablevision. Cablevision News used to be actually the only real news that we had out here, and I know that these franchise agreements somehow have something to do with who covers the news and who doesn't cover the news. We really need some news coverage out here, some localized news coverage. So I wanted to know if there was any possibility that that was going to be involved in what you were doing. The other two things that I have issue with is, are you going to improve the current infrastructure? Because, I don't know, but you know, Cablevision goes out, the internet goes out. I mean, the type of wiring that we have is an issue. So I was curious about that. And lastly, the triple play is really misleading. If you get your internet, your phone, and your television, you get 1 year for $99, and then screw you the rest of the time, because if you call back and you say, hey, you know, you're offering my neighbor up the road the triple play, but now my bill is up to $190. So I would really like to understand, you know, what kind of incentives are going to be built into this whole program, because I think that's really what we want to know about.
I understand what you're saying, and its rates are not part of the franchise agreement. It's not part of the resolution that's before the board with regard to the transaction between Altice and Cablevision. And it's really not my place. I'm not an employee of Cablevision. I'm representing them as in a consultant basis. So I really can't comment on their marketing and sales provisions. Infrastructure, I do know that infrastructure is always being analyzed. New technologies are always being introduced. There are provisions in the franchise agreement for infrastructure, and if there is, my recommendation to the board would be to listen to specific concerns, refer to the franchise agreement to see where those concerns can be addressed, and present those concerns to Cablevision. And regarding local news, unfortunately, the only federal and state provisions in a contract between a cable operator and a municipality pertain to the public education and government access channels. So Cablevision and any other cable operators required to provide the channels that people are watching right now to see these board meetings. But with respect to any other type of programming, whether it's local news or whether it's the Weather Channel, the company can make those programming decisions at their discretion. So it's unfortunate that there isn't a local news program like there was on Channel 6, but there are alternatives that have been popping up.
What are they?
HudsonValleyNewsNetwork.com is one that you can take a look at, because I used to work at Cablevision and now I'm one of the partners of HVNN. So a little plug for my.
Can I ask just one more quick question? Does Cablevision have its own lines, or are you pairing with other companies like Verizon? Are you putting your own lines in?
Yes.
Yes,
No, Cablevision puts in its own lines completely separate from any other service provider. In fact, Cablevision has to rent space on the telephone poles from either Verizon or the electric power company.
Okay, because the Verizon lines are really old, and they are a problem, and they were for me for years. So I was just curious about that.
It's the poles we have to be concerned about in the age of those.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other comment, public comment for the Cablevision merger?
I just have one last question. There was a recent deal between Charter and Time Warner where there was an agreement made to sort of continue the level quality of service and the pricing structure in place for X number of years. I forget how many offhand. Do you suppose your client would be amenable to some sort of conditional approval of the?
I don't know. It would be speculation on my part, and I'm not familiar with the Time Warner Comcast or Time Warner Charter arrangements.
That's true. So we could get, because we can't get Time Warner out here. So is that an option for us?
No, I mean, what I was saying was that there was a similar situation in another town, and there was some
He was
concern.
comparing the two.
Right. There was some
Time Warner
concern
to
that
Cablevision.
service was either going to change or like internet speeds were not going to be the same afterwards. And so what that municipality did is they approved the merger of the two companies, but they put some conditions in place saying, for the next 2, 3, 4, I forget how many years offhand, but for the next X number of years, the new entity would agree to keep sort of pricing and level of service the same place it was at the time of the merger. So if that's potentially an option with your client, then maybe that's something we can explore.
Okay, is there any other comment for the Cablevision merger? I make a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilman Doyle?
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi?
Yes. Make a motion to return to regular meeting. Second?
I'll second that.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Prodi?
Yes. Next on the agenda is the 10-mile roundtable follow-up presented by Tanya Shomatov.
Thanks so much for taking the time to speak with me tonight about our efforts to improve collaboration around the management of the 10 Mile River area. I'm Tonya Shumatov. I'm the New York Watershed Manager of the Housatonic Valley Association. I'd like to ask if the town board members could open the little folder that I prepared for you. I have a formal letter in there. I have a fact sheet about designated inland water bodies. I have a letter from Dee Dee Barrett and some factual background on the 10 Mile. I think, as you know, watershed scale management issues like flooding, salination, water quality, erosion are often very challenging for towns to address individually. There are now a lot of community and environmental and financial benefits to collaborating with neighboring towns and other stakeholders to address issues that are beyond the scope and the pocketbook of individual towns to deal with. And as the organization that covers the entire 10-mile watershed region, the Housatonic Valley Association, HVA, has helped to facilitate communication and cooperation between the watershed towns. We came before this board about a year ago with Mike Jastrzemski, who's my supervisor and the director of water quality for HVA. So this was the motivation for HVA to invite all the 10 Mile River watershed towns and others working in the watershed, agencies like Soil and Water, to come together at a forum back in 2014, which some of you attended, and a 10 Mile River watershed roundtable at the Old Drovers Inn just this last September. At the roundtable, we agreed to continue to serve in the role of organizer and facilitator for this group. And with this encouragement, we're now dedicating staff time and membership dollars towards a process that is resulting in the formation of a 10 Mile Watershed Council, consisting of representatives from the watershed towns who will meet periodically 4 times a year to address watershed issues and seek grant funding. We believe that this council will help bring more technical and financial resources for watershed management and also other collaborative opportunities into Amenia, as well as other 10 Mile towns, and provide a place for the towns to work together on watershed-wide solutions as well as town-specific issues. In the last year, we've made a circuit ride to all the towns to basically build consensus around the notion that working collaboratively is a good idea. And we've heard from all the towns that they do think it is a good idea. We've asked the towns to express support for collaborative watershed management in the form of a resolution, and I've sent the board members today a resolution of this nature for Amenia. This resolution has already passed in Dover Plains and Northeast Pauling, Town of Pauling and Village, will be coming to the table to consider it next week at our next watershed roundtable, which will actually take place here in Amenia, upstairs in the planning board room, a week from today at 7 p.m. During our last roundtable, the Department of State, Cornell, and members of the Wappingers Intermunicipal Council spoke of many of the benefits of watershed management. And those benefits include, as I mentioned before, dealing with regional issues such as flooding, stormwater management, culverts, creating river access for recreation. When we had the Department of State there, they mentioned redeveloping hamlets and downtowns and waterfront areas, spurring lots of economic activity. Redeveloping old buildings is in the category of what can be grant funded. Blueway and greenway trails along streams and rivers. Community resiliency strategies for intense storms and flooding resilience. And creating a major watershed management plan. We were able to hear many examples of communities that have accessed major funding in New York State. There have been 59 watersheds and 354 communities who've accessed funds to make major improvements, bringing lots of tourism into their area. So we found out that collaborative watershed management will give you access to resources that are not otherwise available, and that do require evidence of watershed-wide cooperation, such as the New York State DOS Watershed Planning Implementation Funds, the US EPA, DEC Watershed Planning, FEMA Hazard Mitigation and System programs. Now there's a new federal grant through the Forestry Department that has to be watershed-wide to preserve pristine watersheds, which this is more or less a pristine watershed. So all of these programs were discussed in detail at our 10-mile roundtable, and I've prepared a fact sheet for you about it. But they do involve revitalization activities, planning, design, feasibility studies, construction projects, and implementation of all sorts of wonderful things. So what we, discovered also is that this designation, it's called a inland waterway designation, does not require any mandates, does not involve any mandates, fees, or restrictions to any landowners or any towns from New York State. It is only a designation, which is actually an honor for a watershed to have, such as the Ausable River, which is beautiful in the Adirondacks. And it only allows towns to apply for grant funding that they would not otherwise have. I just want to make that absolutely clear. When we spoke to the other towns at the roundtable, and I know Vicki Doyle and Victoria were there, we found that the towns in the Harlem Valley and in our area have very similar concerns. Stormwater management, they want more recreational opportunities, sediment and salt coming downstream. These are all the kinds of issues that everybody had. And so the two ways of dealing with this is, number one, it's a process to pass a resolution in a town saying that in concept you like the idea of watershed collaboration. I've prepared in your booklet at the last page a resolution such as some of the other towns have passed.
Actually, we had our attorney review it and do one for us that she
good.
felt more appropriate.
That's much better. Great. That's the way it should be. It should come from within the town. So passing that resolution would entitle you to approach your legislator, to the New York State Assembly and the Senate, to be able to pass a law designating the 10-mile river region as an inland waterway. And we've also spoken to Mark Molinaro, Dee Dee Barrett. There's a letter in your package from Dee Dee Barrett saying that she just did this for Wappingers Intermunicipal Council last June. It was a long process for them, 2 years. If we get going now, we could get it done by the end of the year. And Mark Molinaro has said that he will also support this with letters of support from the county. So I would like to encourage you to, embark on this process by passing the resolution tonight, and then we can help you to write letters to your assembly members and give you outlines for that, which are in your package as well.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody
So-
have any questions?
No. So are you going to take a motion tonight?
We're going to discuss it,
Okay, great. Thank you.
but I'd like to wait till our other board member is here.
Okay, thank
Before, and we'll do all our resolutions at the same time.
Thank you very much for allowing me to present.
Tonya, I have one question.
Sure.
In the resolution, it states, well, the resolution that you came, now therefore be resolved that the town of Amenia supports ongoing efforts to collaboratively manage the 10-Mile River watershed for flood damage prevention, water quality protection, and stewardship of natural resources. Now, how are you protecting water quality?
How are we protecting water quality? By working together?
Yeah.
Okay, so there are regional issues that are affecting all up and down the Route 22 corridor that are bigger than one town can deal with. For example, the Cary Institute found that there's a lot of salination getting into the water now from salting, and it's being retained in the soils in the summer. That's something that the town of Amenia could not deal with. It affects water quality, it affects people's blood pressure. There have been whole conferences about it at the Cary Institute. That would be one example of a regional water quality issue. There's other issues where sediment and erosion, especially during intense storms, which may be more frequent because of climate change, are washed downstream in the river. We just had this in Wasatch Creek, actually, because there was a break in the dam up at Tamarack, and all this sediment and all these fish came down, and they were all on the sides of the river. And so it was, that's an example of something where having this kind of an agreement gives you clout to be able to, let's just say it was a really, really serious issue and it was flooding and it hurt people's properties. This gives you access to be able to fix that.
But it's like, you mentioned the sodium and stuff from salting the roads and everything like that. I mean...
That's only one thing.
That's one thing. No, I understand
it's only one
that.
thing.
But I mean, can the 10-Mile River watershed say, well, now we're part of that watershed, we do not want the town of Amenia to use salt on their roads?
No, it doesn't, no.
Okay.
This is a council that comes together and expresses sort of what our issues are that we, as stakeholders of the region, are concerned about, that we might apply for a grant together. It could be that we want to have better, like a greenway along the 10 mile, or along the Wasatch Creek. It could be that we want to, work together to have better trails, nice trails. It could be just recreation. The Wappingers Intermunicipal Council is, in their case, they had phosphorus and nutrients that completely closed down one development and the water was undrinkable. So they accessed $4 million to be able to fix that and to be able to require the upstream towns to be able to have the funding to fix it.
So the council doesn't set rules and regulations?
No.
It's more of an acting as a recommendation. You have a problem, we recommend if you did this or did that, we could help you get a grant and we could solve the problem.
Yeah, it's taking a regional approach or a watershed approach to regional planning. It's seeing the broader issue that, we have an artery, which is Route 22. We have another artery, which is all of the tributaries in the 10-Mile River. We share that. It doesn't respect boundaries. It makes a lot of sense. This is sort of the name of the game now in regional planning, for towns to work together regionally to address issues that affect all of them.
Because the one thing that sticks with me, I mean, especially in the town of Amenia, there's so many rules and regulations now. I honestly think it's hampering development a little bit, but you don't set rules and regulations, though. You just, you're like a
not-
consultant.
First of all,
almost.
it's not us, it's you,
It's us.
okay? It's you, Town of Northeast, Town of Pauling, Town of Dover. We're just going to facilitate you coming together to talk. And it's creating an intermunicipal council so that you can start talking to each other. And you can talk to each other for 2 or 3 years before you decide anything at all, you know? But it's giving you a designation so that you can then apply for major grant funding from the EFC, from the CFA, really big funding, you know, millions of dollars, to deal with region-wide issues.
Okay.
And so that's basically what it is.
You know, because it's just, like I said, my biggest worry is, I mean, everybody around here's went fishing. We used a lead weight for the longest time. Now all of a sudden we have to use steel weights that are twice the price and this and that and everything else. And I mean, is it just another regulation? Is it
Yeah.
another regulatory
No.
thing? Okay.
The Ausable River, one of their issues was culverts. So they got grant funding, this is from Barbara Kendall, who's with the Department of State, to assess and to fix the culverts. They got funding for their watershed plan, and now they've gotten grants to replace all their culverts in this very important area. The Canandaigua Lake watershed, which is similar to the 10 Mile, started a task force with a report, and they got funding for their watershed plan. They formed an intermunicipal council, and they got funding to do all sorts of projects like a lake water trail, water quality improvement, stabilization of banks, stormwater, flood control, wetlands. These are, they developed models for the whole watershed that for the towns. They put in a walkway. So they've done, you know, it's that kind of a thing to give the towns a framework to be able to have the supervisors work together.
Okay.
And then the supervisor usually either serves on the council or designates someone else, and they come together 4 times a year to talk. So that's
Does
what
anyone
it is.
else have any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I just want to say that this has been done before in Delaware County after Hurricane Irene very effectively, and also in the Still River area of the Houstonic. So it works. And also Wappingers. Thank you.
Before we go to public comment, I see our new county legislator came in, and I think is sitting in the back. Could you want to come and say a few words?
Thank you so much. First of all, I'm sorry for coming a little late. It was county committee meeting night tonight, so that adjourned at 6:30. Quite a drive out here to Amenia. I'm happy to be here with all of you. I know you have a very busy meeting tonight. I just wanted to introduce myself, Sandy Washburn. I'm happy to be representing you. I will be attending as many of your meetings as I can, and Supervisor Parati and I will be getting together fairly soon to have one-on-one meeting. So thank you for welcoming me, and I look forward to being in touch with all of you and working closely in the future. Thanks so much.
Okay, before we go to public comment, I wanted to read our rules of procedure for public comment. Resolution that we passed quite a while ago, whereas the town board, as part of the board's rules of procedure, may include regarding public participation rules pertaining to public participation typically indicate at what point during the meeting public comment may be permitted. The rules might also include the amount of time each person may speak and whether they may speak on any issue or just issues on the agenda. In addition, the Committee on Open Government has noted that the town board could clearly adopt rules to prevent verbal interruptions, shouting, and other outbursts, as well as slanderous or obscene language or signs and movements during the meeting in order to ensure an orderly meeting and provide the clear ability for those in attendance to hear and observe the discussions and proceedings. The public may speak only during the Amenia Town Board meeting's public comment period and at any other time a majority of the town board allows. The first public comment period is limited to comments on agenda items only. The public comment period at the conclusion of the Amenia Town Board meeting is reserved for general comments or concern. Speakers must limit their remarks to 5 minutes. Speakers may not yield any remaining time to another speaker. Speakers must be recognized by the supervisor or the presiding officer. Speakers must stand at the podium. Speakers must give their name, address, and organization if applicable. All remarks must be addressed to the Amenia Town Board as a body and not to individual town board members. Speakers must observe rules of courtesy and not engage in verbal interruption, shouting, and other outbursts, as well as slanderous or obscene language or signs or movements. And we would like all of you to have the chance to speak at public comment and to please follow the rules and do it in a respectful way. Who was the first person?
Kelly Parsons.
Well, I have a question for the town board in the sense of, oh, God, yes, sorry. Okay, so I guess the question, I'm speaking for a lot of people from Wassaic about the fire district taxes, how high they are, why they were not shared with Amenia like other townships of Dover and Wingdale and Northeast and the village of Millerton. And another thing of why it was kind of dropped. The ball was dropped in 2013. And if we could have gotten notice of some sort of additional taxes, it's a lot. 171% is a lot for people that are on fixed incomes, retirees, or self-employed. You know, do we have any answers for those? Or is it, are you working on this to share with Amenia? Is there a resolution?
We're working on a plan
Okay.
to consider an ambulance district with Wassaic and Amenia for 2017.
Okay.
We had nothing to do with the contract that it's currently part of your taxes. Some of those questions that you're asking need to be asked of the commissioners.
Okay, last week we went to a commissioners meeting and they told us we cannot answer that because they were supposedly in litigation.
But that's over now.
And that's over. Okay, so we can address the commissioners, the town board cannot answer any of these questions?
I think we can.
I mean,
No, well, we can't, if it isn't our contract, we don't know what's in it.
Well, her questions were really specific and didn't have to do with the contract, I don't think. So one of the questions was, why was the ball dropped in 2013?
yeah.
But
Why
this
was that?
I don't know.
issue goes much further back than 2013.
We were explained, yes.
It goes
like
back
6,
to
7,
at
8
least
years ago.
2006. I remember meeting Janet Reagan, and that administration met with both the members of the Amenia and the Wassaic Fire District volunteers, and we came to no conclusion at the time. Half of the town felt that they still had the service they needed, and Wassaic felt it didn't. And that has been kind of as far as I can tell from my observation over all these years, that's continued to be a question. Part of the town feels like it is served, and part of the town is not being. It has had up and downs, let's just say. And I remember in 2006, this is my earliest memory, is that the town board was asked to create a contingency budget of $250,000 because it was felt at the time that there could be an imminent failure of volunteers to be able to serve Wassaic properly. We were informed at the time that we couldn't just put in a contingency budget for that kind of service, that we would need to create a district in order to do that. So at the time, we just felt we weren't ready to do that. It would take a year in advance. it seemed that this problem was, it went through cycles where they didn't have any EMTs, and then they had suddenly 7 EMTs, and then they had no EMTs, and then they thought they were doing okay. So over the years, it's just been like a car that you just aren't sure when you should ditch it and go with a new one. And nobody pulled the trigger. We had some intermittent meetings in between that, but the last one that I remember everybody coming together was not that long ago. I found out myself in October at the fire commissioners meeting that we were going to have a $500,000 addition to our bill. So I'm a resident also of Wassaic. If I'd known this was coming down the pike imminently, I think we would have started this back a year or 2 years ago, formed a district, and done it the way that we're currently headed. But until there was really, an imminent line drawn in the sand, we just weren't moving forward on that and having additional meetings. So we would have some meetings when somebody said there was a problem. We'd try and come to some kind of resolution and start figuring out the pieces that would need to be in place. But then there was just never really all that many subsequent meetings. That's just from my perspective. There may be other people here who know the history better than I do and recall it better, but it just seems like we've intermittently been riding this cycle, hoping that it would get patched up, hoping that we would be able to continue on, knowing ultimately that this would not be able to last forever, the volunteer services, particularly in Wassaic. We had two emergencies in the fall. One at Four Brothers, that I was attending a little rally at Four Brothers before our election, and we had somebody trip and fall within 3 or 4 minutes. We had, well, you were on the scene, but we had an ambulance there. We had another emergency here at the town hall, and within 3 or 4 minutes we had an ambulance service and all the things that we needed to make sure that things were done. But I, being a layman, I don't understand all of the details, whether you need advanced life support or all of the details that these folks in the fire districts know so well. How many calls are being missed, how many are doing okay, what happens, why the town of Dover, I guess, is very frustrated because the town of Amenia doesn't always respond and they have to cover our bases. I don't know all those details. I'm trying to learn, but it's something that we don't feel like, at this point, we have all the knowledge. I don't feel I have all the knowledge to go fully ahead. We're interviewing people in February that will come and tell us what they suggest the answer is when half of the town is working and half the town is not working. So it's just this weird thing that we've got, that we have to come to some serious understanding of what service we need, what providers out there will do it for us at a rate that we feel we can afford. And that's a long learning curve and a process that we hope to have in place over the course of the year and have it ready for 2017. I believe that's the goal, and
We have it in place now. We've already started it in October.
But we have to have it completed by 2017.
We have to have it completed by May, and there's no reason why we can't do that.
Is this with Amenia also?
Yes.
Okay.
The only way you can have an ambulance district is under the town. Wassaic is a hamlet. So if we have an ambulance district, it has to be a town of Amenia ambulance district.
So is there one district or 2 districts?
There's 2 fire districts,
There's 2 fire districts,
but there would be 1 ambulance district.
1 ambulance district.
But somewhere along the line, originally there was just the Amenia Fire District, and somewhere, I think in the 70s, maybe, a resolution was passed and the Wassaic Fire District was created. I'm not really sure of the history, but that's unique to us. The town of Northeast and the village of Millerton are both under the same fire district. They're both under the town of Northeast Fire District. So it was very easy for them to contract with a provider and just put it in their budget under the general fund. We have a very unique setup here where we have 2 fire districts.
So that's the
There
problem.
is no, yeah, there is no place to just stick it in the budget and, go get a contract, put it in the budget without it being, without, Amenia resident, paying for the ambulance service in Wassaic. I mean, there was no way legally that I could do that. The only way I can do it is with an ambulance district. If you set up and just so people understand that, an ambulance district is a taxing district. So on your tax bill, you would have, your county taxes, your town taxes. You would still have your fire district taxes, whether you're in Wassaic or Amenia. And then there would be another category called ambulance district. Pretty much. That's the way it goes. But what I'm trying to do, one of the challenges of doing a contract for just Wassaic is the number of calls. There's a limited number of calls. The companies, they want to have a contract, where they break even or, make money or whatever. So by having Wassaic and Amenia under an ambulance district, then you have the Amenia calls and the Wassaic calls. The other thing I'm looking to do, I have a meeting next Thursday with the town of Northeast and the town of Dover, is to try to create a regional area by looking into joint venture, because then you would have the town of Northeast calls, the Amenia calls, the Wassaic calls, and then you would have what they call economies of scale. The more calls you have, the less money it would be, and it would be the less tax on everybody. So that's where, where I'm headed right now. We've been meeting with the Dutchess County Commissioner, Dana Smith. He's been at all our meetings. I did have a workshop a week after I went to the public hearing and listened to what was happening, and had, a lot of, had Wassaic firemen, Wassaic and Amenia firemen, Wassaic and Amenia fire commissioners, Wassaic and Amenia, rescue squad people. They were there. They all sat down. I also invited Dover and town of Northeast. And so what happened were committees were formed. There is a Wassaic Ambulance Service Committee and an Amenia Wassaic Service Committee. And they're meeting on either the second or third Tuesday, the 2 committees, with the Dutchess County Commissioner. And I have sat in on the meetings, and Vicki has sat in on the meetings. This is a very complex issue. There's a lot of information. There's a lot of rules. The Comptroller's Office has their own set of rules for when you set up a taxing district. And, you have to get their permission. And also the state does. I had a conference call with 2 state officials, 2 state EMS officials, plus the county. And, to discuss what we need to do. Tonight, we're going to take the first step, because before you can even do an ambulance district, you have to have a map, you have to have a report, and you have to have a plan. So what we're doing is taking the first step so that we can, authorize some, some money and a plan to at least go do that. So there's a lot of rules. It's a complex situation, and we are doing everything we can to have something in place for 2017.
Okay, so the next tax bill of 2017, everything's going to be written out like fire district, ambulance, so it makes sense also.
It'll be all
I mean,
spelled out for
basically,
you.
it didn't make sense, you got this astronomical bill, and it's like, oh, God,
Yeah, that
But
is,
if it was split up, we probably would have understood a little bit more that,
yeah,
it was
we
a
can't,
paid
and we
ambulance.
couldn't do that at this time.
Okay.
We couldn't do that at this time.
And do you find that it's going to go up more than what we've paid this year?
No.
Couldn't
Okay.
possibly.
No.
We have the gold
You
plan, it
promise?
seems like.
Yes, I,
make a joke.
yes, I do promise.
Promise?
No.
It would go down if we shared it town-wide. I think the volume of the calls.
What would what go down?
The
Who is-
cost of
oh,
the ambulance
Who is the
service.
next person for public
Carol
comment?
Lee. Carol.
Oh, would you like to speak?
Okay, so I was at the last meeting, unless I missed one over Christmas, about the permits or the request for a zone change for Bulfamonte. Not exactly positive what that is called, what he's actually.
It's a text amendment change for
Okay.
zoning.
And so at that meeting, it was guaranteed that all the properties, all of us in that area would receive information as things go forward. Have not received anything, so I am assuming nothing has gone forward, or I fell through the cracks.
Oh, no, nothing has happened so far.
Okay, and
The only, I mean, we did get an EAF from them, an environmental review that's on, from Bufamonte.
Bufamonte.
It's, what that is their plan.
And you're asking him to, let me just see, get my terms right. You're asking him to, there's an application in context of the town for him to retain a hydrologist, is that true? To do, for there to be a study on the impact on the water,
Yes,
okay?
that's part of the seeker process.
And that you are going after a secret determination. There's, a full, it's not like a beeline from,
No, it's the full seeker,
okay. And.
because we're not going to leave any stone unturned.
All
This is
right,
too
all right.
important.
The other question is, I have a lot of people come up to me and say, where do I stand on this, and what are we doing, and this and that. Is there any benefit to everyone in Amenia and Dover Plains and Wassaic and in between that are concerned about this to have a petition of concern? It doesn't seem like the opposition to his application is very coordinated. And my concern is that we're all talking about something, but no one's doing anything on our side. So what are we supposed to be doing to prepare for if it goes forward?
Any concerns that you have, I mean, you need to, put them in writing.
As my son
give-
did, and he did write you
Yes,
that
we
letter.
have that.
Uh-huh. So beyond that, if each person that's concerned should be addressing the town council or the planning board?
Or if someone wants
The
to,
public hearing, yeah, the public hearing is the public hearing would be the appropriate opportunity for residents to voice their concerns once they've had a chance to, read the supporting materials, learn about the project, and then they can respond. And that is taken into consideration, and the town board is
Okay.
required to look at those issues.
So after the findings of the secret, then that is a time for us to be able to study that information? And
Yes.
then to have a town meeting of some sort?
right,
Okay. So I haven't missed anything, so we're still on track?
no.
And
All
the documentation that he did forward us is available on the website in the composting area.
Okay.
It was scanned and put up online as soon as we got it available.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Next.
That's all that signed up.
No one else signed up? Does anyone
I
else
think
have?
Jeannie has her hand up.
Yes, you can go right up there.
Okay, I'm going to raise the issue because I'm listening to what this woman is saying, and I'm thinking about being in the Wassaic Fire District, and I felt a little bit like a gotcha when, the bill came out. I work nights. Sometimes I'm in the city, sometimes I'm up here. Not everybody gets, what's going on here on Channel 22. A lot of people don't get the Millerton News. So, and I think I raised this back in 2004. I mean, how are we going to evolve in the time of social media and internet to a point that we're going to let the people know what's going on and they don't have to get their bills to find out that this is going on? Again, not blaming you guys, but I was at the December meeting when it was brought up that the 171% was in the budget. So you guys did know. So, can people sign up for emails and get an email? Maybe
I think one of the fire commissioners could explain how they noticed the public hearing so that everyone knows. Who would like to address that?
Hi, I'm Jeff Barnett Winsby. I'm one of the fire commissioners in Wassaic. So the way that we noticed all these meetings is the way that we always do it, the way that we've always done it, which is by the law. So first and foremost, we do the newspapers of record, which sometimes are Poughkeepsie Journal, sometimes are Millerton News, it just depends. We also put flyers up at the firehouse. We have put things out on Channel 22. Most recently, we have taken to social media and have started putting it on Facebook, and we have Facebooked these previous meetings that would have been the important meetings to attend. I think that we feel like we did everything legally. However, I think we also really recognize and hear that people feel that the spirit wasn't all the way there in terms of communicating. And so we've already gotten together and we're trying to figure out good ways that we can really reach everybody. Because, well, so the reality with that is, this is according to our lawyer, one thing starts a precedent. So whatever you're going to do, you need to keep doing. So we can't send a letter every single time something happens. However, one of the things that was suggested was that we send out an annual letter around budget. So budget is always October 4th or right around there. And we
September 20th, I think you have to have your budget in.
Okay.
Can we please get the comments so the people in the audience out there on TV can hear them? There's some comments they can't hear.
Do I need to repeat
You're
it?
fine, but you're being asked questions, but the people on the TV don't.
You have to repeat the question.
Oh, pardon me. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you say just one more time?
Yes, I think the budget has to be presented, the Wassaic Fire District budget has to be presented to the town board by September 20th.
Okay.
And we were all very well aware that there was a request for, I think it was $303,000.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
Sorry. Hey, thanks.
Everybody, a lot of other people have the same questions.
And, we were all well aware of the fact that the Wassaic Fire District needed $303,000 some odd dollars to continue as is. We were not aware that there was going to be an additional $500,000 tacked to that. And I know the preliminary budget was approved. I think there was a secondary budget that was approved, and then all of a sudden, bam, there's a budget for $500,000 added to it.
Mm-hmm.
So now your budget is $800,000 some odd dollars.
Correct.
Which is frightening.
It is.
And we really needed to know that, because I think there's no offense to anybody. I've lived in the Wassaic Fire District since 1956. I've been around a long time. And there's always been a problem getting people to service the district because we're not that big. And we're an aging population. I'm 70 years old. I can't volunteer anymore. I'm sure there's a lot of others here that maybe could. We all have to make our living and stuff like that. I think our biggest problem was lack of communication. That's the biggest problem. And if there was just a way that we could know what's going on, so we could all help each other. I mean,
Can you state your name for the press?
my name is Velvet Sartori.
I live 73 Tinkertown Road, Dover Plains, New York, the southern district of the fire district. So, you know, and it's just been an ongoing problem. This isn't something that happened overnight. It definitely didn't. We're all well aware of it. I go back to the day when the fire commissioners, out of the goodness of their heart, hired J.H. Ketchum to cover us down there. You know, and it's just a small company. You can't do it all yourselves. I appreciate, you know, what's been going on, but we just needed to know. And I do remember seeing the video there. It was December 12th, 2013, where the guys here came with their hat in their hand and more or less said, hey, we can't do this anymore, and they were ignored. You know, and that's sad. I mean, the town board just kind of said, gee, I guess we have to make a committee, and nothing was done. But none of us knew about it because there's no communication here to get it done. To me, that's the biggest problem, is the lack of communication, because we'd all like to help each other out, I'm sure. You know, and I think that's what we need to do from now on.
I think we really take that to heart, and I think we really hear you, and we absolutely are looking for ways to do that better, and also to welcome people into the firehouse more.
You know,
absolutely.
I always belonged to JHK, as did a lot of us that are sitting here there, because I live a mile away from that district. That's where I grew up. That's where we all belonged. You know, it's a difficult situation for sure, but I think communication is what we need here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a couple other things that I just want to say if I quickly can. First of all, there's some confusion about this budget increase. It is absolutely our intention that this is for 1 year only. This was an emergency measure put forth by the fire commissioners to bridge a gap, while we hope the larger situation would be solved by the town. And I think they are working actively to do that. This is a terrible situation, but one brought on by, I think, great need in our community for safe, reliable 911 care, emergency ambulance care. And while we don't have to provide it and the town doesn't have to provide it, I think we feel that that's legally, I think morally and ethically, we know that all of you have come to rely on it and trust it, and we don't want to let anybody down. And so while we fully recognize that this is a financial hardship brought on to all of us, we were simply acting in a way where we thought about our loved ones needing something and it not being there. And we didn't feel like we could face any one of you and explain, I'm sorry the ambulance didn't get out, I'm sorry someone you love died. And that's where this simply is coming from. So I think you can have our sincerest, heartfelt apologies for a lack of a better communication. That's something we aim and strive to do better moving forward. But I want to make it clear where this comes from. This is not meant to be a wool over the eyes or a gotcha. And I certainly understand why it would feel that way. But that is not in any way where we're coming from. And we apologize that you feel that way. We just want everybody to be safe and have something they can rely on.
I'd just like to make one more comment. I think the fire district did absolutely the right thing when they went in front of the board and said, we need help.
Thank you.
And they were ignored. That is my personal feeling. Yeah, I can't express it any other way.
Jeff, can you explain the decision that you had to wrestle with? It sounds like as far as whether or not the ambulance is allowed to charge patients who use the service if they have insurance and can pay. Is that something that is not going to be required? Can you explain your contract and how you've set this up?
I can't explain the perfect details of that because it's really lawyer speak, but I do want to say one thing about the contract. We submitted it to Don Marie today, so it is posted as of this moment for download on the town's website, so anybody may download it and review it, and if you're curious, please do.
There's a link on the homepage that will take you right to the document, so you can go ahead and download and look at it.
There's no prices on it, though. That's what we need to know.
That's totally fair. So then the next answer is sort of, I want to speak to the difference between a fire district contracting with an ambulance service and a town ambulance district. contracting with an ambulance. So a fire district is not allowed to charge the end user anything. Now, some of you may have taken a ride in the Wassaic fire ambulance before and gotten a bill. The reason for that is you probably had an ALS call and we needed to bring in a paramedic from ADP or NDP, and they charged you. Okay, we did not have a contract with them; they were doing it separately. This year, the reason that you're looking at $500,000 is basically an ambulance needs 2,200 calls, charging the end user a year to break even. That's an average. We average, 250 calls a year. Amenia, I think, is around that, maybe a little bit less. So you can see why a break-even ambulance doesn't necessarily make sense for the fire districts. But when a town contracts, the ambulance provider is allowed to charge the end user. And so you see a cheaper upfront cost, but you will see a charge either to you or to your insurance company when it goes that way. And I think that that's probably the best way to go in general. The reason that we couldn't just come to the town and say, hey guys, you got to do this right now, is that, as Supervisor Prodi has sort of mentioned, there's a long, complicated process to setting up this ambulance district. And what we did was we bit the bullet, and we're bridging the gap. That's why it's $500,000, but within this year, and I know it's not a huge consolation, but if you take a ride in that ambulance this year, you won't have a charge. Your insurance company won't be charged.
So
If
this
you're
is the
from New
year
York,
to have.
this is the year. This is the year.
Your issues, get them over with.
So that's complicated stuff, and this is obviously stuff that we're all learning about. But that's why, when you see, oh, Millerton has a contract for $180,000 or what, that's why. That's the difference, and it's
Where
about.
exactly did it say that you could not bill?
It says that from our lawyer's mouth. I don't have a code book or something. It's a state, yeah. It's our lawyer helping us through that process.
That would be through the controller's office.
As I said, that our information came from our lawyer and continues to come from our lawyer. I'm sure it comes. I don't know that stuff well enough to be able to say that, but.
Over the past 3 years, we've had increases every year. It was 19.3% in 2013. It was 25.1% last year, and now this year 171. It just keeps going up.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to stop.
You
know what? People are moving out of here because they can't afford it.
You
know what? And next year, if they get into this ambulance district, that means we're going to have another tax on top of it. So are you going to go back? Emma Jeroman. Are we going to go back to what your tax levy was last year, which was $297,950, or the year before, it was $284,515? Are we going to go back to there?
Our tax would be, I'm only one person, the 5 of us have to vote, but my guess is, based on our conversations, the intention is to not have that $500,000 charge there at all.
Okay,
so it would
then
be a
we'll go
return.
back to the 297.
I'm not going to give you a specific number, but it's thereabouts, or 307, or whatever we submitted. One of the reasons that you've had some serious increases is we bought a new big truck. Why did we buy a new big truck? Because it is a truck that can handle a big fire, and it can be run by 2 people. In the age of a situation where we have less and less and less volunteers, let me tell you, you want a truck like that. That if only 2 people show up, they might be able to put your fire out. Versus the old trucks, maybe not.
What year did you buy the new ambulance?
Can you give me that year? This is before my time.
Yeah, 2 years ago, and there was a problem.
2 years ago.
Right, 2 years ago there was a problem, but you bought a new ambulance.
I mean,
You don't buy something if you have a problem.
We bought a new ambulance. And the reason that I think that we bought it was because the old one was not legal to run. Had we, back in 2013, gotten this ball rolling more effectively, maybe we wouldn't have bought that new ambulance. But you have an expectation that you're going to be taken to the hospital when you call 911. I think that's a reasonable expectation. And I think that all of these people, and I'm sorry I wasn't part of that decision then, but I think they were all acting in good faith. I don't think any of these people take a 170-hour course to become EMTs just to spend money on toys. These people are really trying to do something positive for the community. I understand that you're upset, but let's let's keep it within the realm of fairness here. I mean, these are all volunteers.
Could you explain to the taxpayers the role of the current 4 or 5 EMTs you have now
I
with the
believe we
new
have
contract?
3 currently active. One is our ambulance chief, Paul Voorhees. I think it might be more accurate for someone who is really active in the company to explain this. Do you want to do it, Donnie?
What question, what do you want? I mean, they live outside the district.
Could you, we need,
Don Cummings, Commissioner Wassake.
what I just wanted to know that you negotiated a contract with Northern Dutchess Paramedics for you to have an ambulance and a paramedic available 24/7. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct.
Okay, 24/7. So my question is, you have EMTs who have taken all the training. What role do they have in the rescue squad? You just re-elected a chief of a rescue squad. What role does the rescue squad have in your plan for ambulance care with this new contract?
They backfill, and also they run training. So Paul runs like free CPR every Monday night. You can pop in and you can get that if you're active in the fire department.
But he's not using the ambulance?
He backfills. That's what using the ambulance
So,
is called
okay,
backfill.
so when you, so say the ambulance that's on call 24/7 has a call. So are you saying that the rescue squad will use, will go ahead and take that call?
I'll answer the question, Victoria. Kenny Elliott.
I'm just trying to
Deputy
understand.
District Chief for the Wassake Fire Company. Our EMTs are still active. Our ambulance is still at the firehouse and is still in use. If we have enough people to man our ambulance, that ambulance will call out. Basically, our ambulance is off shift. If there is a crew that can attend the call, the ambulance will go on shift. They will respond. If it is a BLS call that does not require a paramedic, our ambulance will do the transportation, and that paid ambulance will stay in the district in there in case there is another call. So they are still active for what they can. But you keep stating we have 3 or 4 EMTs. Realistically, we probably have 2 that are active. One of them lives out of town, the other one owns a business, and he's not around a lot. So this is the situation that we were put in. Our EMTs are still there, our ambulance will still respond, providing we have a major fire incident where we need an ambulance on standby. The Wassake Fire Company ambulance will be there on standby. The paid ambulance will stay in service to provide service to the rest of the community.
So they take the BLS calls?
If they are available.
If they are available. But if they're not, then the 24/7 ambulance with the paramedic, which is more equipped for the ALS calls, takes the BLS calls too?
They all do the same job, but
Okay.
ultimately, yes.
Okay.
Okay?
Penny, when the new contract with Northern Dutchess, what do you get, 1 ambulance and 2 EMTs?
No,
No,
paramedic.
you have 1 paramedic and 1 EMT on the rig.
And that's what we're getting for 500, what they're getting for 500,000. 1 ambulance, 1 EMT, and 1 paramedic?
Yeah, that would be your coverage at all times.
24/7.
At all times.
Correct.
Now, would it be more cost effective, and I don't know if it's even doable or what. You have an ambulance, you have a place where the ambulance stays. What's an EMT make a year?
You're asking the wrong
50,000?
person. I'm
I
an
mean, if we
electrician.
put on two EMTs, it's $100,000 a year, you just cut it down by $400,000.
Okay, you have 2 EMTs. Are they never going to get sick? Are they never going to take a vacation? They're going to want health, and they're going to want
Kenny,
benefits.
I'm
stuff.
just
I'm just saying
asking.
it was something that was actually discussed. There was, I believe, at one time we had a discussion with an ambulance provider to have their staff man our ambulance, and the reality of it is they're not going to do that. And for us to do that as a community, you can't hire 2 people. You'd have to hire probably 6 people. You know what I mean? And then, because it's not like, okay, 2 people, yeah, I'll do it every day until something happens, and then you don't have it.
I'm just saying, is that something that's an option?
Not to my knowledge.
I mean,
don't know
from what I'm
that-
seeing, listening to how they want to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour and stuff like that, and there's all this stuff where EMTs are making $14, $15 an hour. $14, $15 an hour is a $35,000, $40,000 a year job. So again, you need 6 EMTs, $30,000 a year. What's that? $160,000. I mean, it's still
Maybe that's an option for the town to look into.
$340,000 less. I don't know. I'm just asking.
Those are, in fact, the various many variables that the county emergency response head has come down and tried to outlay for us. It's like buying an insurance plan. There are a million different variations, and we appreciate the opportunity to hear, at least even cursory, some of your opinions. But the best place is to come to these meetings, which the next one...
The next one will be executive session.
So,
because we're actually, and that is because we're going to be actually meet with an ambulance provider and be talking about contractual information.
But those meetings are the
because
ones
what they are going to do is like, well, you can, you have this scenario or this one or this one. I mean, they're going to lay out our options.
So when's the next meeting?
I think it's February 19th, is that right?
Well, February 9th, we're having one. We're meeting with Northern Dutchess paramedics. February 16th, we're meeting with Mobile Life. But that meeting will be executive session because we're going to be talking contractual things. I mean, they're going to be telling us you can do this contract or this contract. And then the committees, the Wassaic Committee and the Amenia Committee will be there to actually offer insight as to whether this one will work or that one will work. In other words, to get a plan. Because in order to put, one of the requirements for the ambulance district is a plan, and we're not at the plan yet. Right now, with the resolution we're going to pass tonight is going to give us the authority to start working toward getting the actual map. Because one of the requirements that I was sent, I spoke to legal counsel at Association of Towns, and they sent me about, how to, kind of like a how to do an ambulance district. And that's one of the things that you have to present. You have to have a map, a plan, a report. So right now, what we want to do is put the map together. In other words, let's get all the boundaries, the meets and bounds, the whole layout, the area that we're going to cover. So, and it has to be very, very specific. So that's where, that's our starting point right now. And then speaking to the two companies who are available to provide service for this area, I mean, we just want to see, okay, what are the choices? I mean, we can do 24/7, but, as Kenny said, we need to do backfill. In other words, you need to have a backup. We need to get the specific plan in place. And you can't really do that until you talk to the two providers. So that's what we're going to do. That's the second step in a report. And then everything goes to, it gets turned into the town clerk's office. It'll be on file there so anybody can look at it if they need to, and then we'll have a public hearing.
How will the public know when it's there to be looked at? That's what everybody misses. When is it that they can find out about this stuff?
There will be a notice for a public hearing, and that'll tell you that it's on file in the...
That was my original question when you asked Jeff to come up. The gotcha wasn't specific to the fire department. My issue is that there's a communications problem in this community. We can't turn on a news station. We just said something to the Cablevision guy. We've lost pretty much local radio. Nobody's doing any of the news. And so you have to look for the legals in the back of the newspaper. And if you happen to miss it, and you miss that meeting, and what if you can't attend that meeting? What if you have conflicts and you can't attend it? What is the way that we as a community are going to start communicating? Because Velvet's exactly right. It's not as much that we're mad at the fire department for the choices that they had to make, but I think maybe we can bring some positive things to the table if we know that things are happening. And this is a struggle for the community. So what I'm putting to the town board is not a criticism, but a suggestion that we find a solution that's better than just putting something in the legals. And as Jeff said, maybe it's the Poughkeepsie Journal, maybe it's the Millerton News.
Actually, we do more than just put it in the legals. We post it, we put it on our website, we put it on Channel 22. If we need to do more than that, we can use more of social media. I mean, you know,
It's not a criticism.
I mean, I know it's not a criticism, but you can't just say, well, there's no communication.
Didn't say there wasn't any. What I said is what we have now isn't working.
That's what I'm telling you, that we are improving it.
Okay.
Everything that we do, that we propose, we're putting on our website.
Okay.
I mean, Gretchen spends a lot of time putting things out there.
Just as an FYI, we're also starting to cross-post into the Wassaic Amenia community group on Facebook to try and get more information.
Gretchen, could we sign up for emails? I mean, is there a way that if people wanted to sign up for information that was coming out, or if the town board decided once a month they wanted to put something together, is there a possibility that people in the community could sign up to get an email periodically or something?
There is a newsletter
right,
that we haven't used, but do you guys want to, I mean, we could just take the collection of articles and put it through there and send it out once a month.
We could put something out there now and send it out. And
so, yeah.
You know, we are looking for better ways to communicate. I mean, that's why, you know, we're just not depending on the legals. We use our website, we use 22, we post things. We're, you know, use Facebook. If we need to use Twitter and all the other places, fine. But, you know, we can use if we have a newsletter link on our website that we haven't been using, well, let's use it. We are looking for any and all ways to communicate everything when things are happening that, you know, that affect you. But we do use the website.
So we can go in, there's a bunch of junk emails in the newsletter link right now.
Is there?
So I can pull those out, and then all I need is just content, which can be sent as a Word doc. And then we can cut, paste that in and send it out on whatever schedule you want to do. So what do you guys want to do?
Can we keep it simple and just mail a letter?
Well, the thing is, it costs money to do that.
I mean, it costs money. It's costing us money setting up a website. It's costing us money running a Twitter account.
We have a website.
This stuff is already,
it's already there.
It's.
But the thing is, number one, you have the cost. Number two, what happens if it doesn't go to the right address and now you have people coming back? I mean, there are legal requirements that are set up that it has to be published in the official paper of the town. It has to be posted on the town signboard. If the town is putting it on the website, it does make it available, but you have to realize the town can't mail letters on every single issue to every single resident who then claims it went to the wrong address, I don't live there, I rent out the property. So if the town, as a courtesy, puts it on the website, that's a nice thing, but you have to realize that if something doesn't get on there, legally they've still fulfilled the requirements under the law to publish and to post.
But we are going to do, since this is such an important issue and affects everyone, I mean, we are just going to go above and beyond and communicate anywhere we can communicate to reach you. And if you have suggestions, you know where I am. Anybody can come in my office anytime. I'm usually here. Or call me, or, you know, reach out to me on Facebook, whatever. If you have an idea about where I can reach out to you, you know, we could even post a notice in Kelsey's, you know. Whatever we need to do to reach you is what we're really going to try to do.
Could I
Because
just make a suggestion?
This is so important.
Nobody's really mentioned it, but we have the Millerton News with a reporter here who will probably come to just about every meeting. The Millerton News we're lucky to have still a weekly, which many towns don't have. And I think those things can go in there, especially remembering that many people in this community do not have internet that they keep modernizing all the time. Sometimes you just can't keep buying new versions of the next and latest type of technology. And the Millerton News is a good old-fashioned thing, and it's available in both hamlets for sale. And anybody that comes into my general store who needs information can get it free.
Well, Millerton News is our official newspaper, so any and all of our legal notices go in the Millerton News.
But again, we're stating what the law is, what we have to do. We're posting it here, we're posting it there by the law, but it's obvious it's not working. You know, so again, like Victoria said, we do need communication. If there's any suggestion how we could do it better, how, you know...
Well, we're going to use the newsletter on the website.
You know, I do understand we do have these things, but again, like they said, a lot of people don't have email, a lot of people don't read Facebook and everything else. Unfortunately, it's like any disaster or catastrophe that happens. The taxes went up, the room is full. You understand? We've been talking about with the Wassaic Fire Company for the past 2 years that I remember. They've been in front of us 2 or 3 times already, and it's been 5 guys in the room, nobody else. And just like any other accident or fire, no one knew about it. So here we go with the communication again. So we have an issue. Let's get past the issue and see how we can make it better so it doesn't happen again like this. So any suggestions are going to be great.
We've already
I like
started
the whole
the
mail
process.
thing because I'll read a postcard. I'll read a mail. I mean, we can mail out water bills, we can mail out dog license renewals and everything else. Why can't we mail out something as important as this?
Well, I think what we can do is put more notices up. I mean, if there are places where a lot of people congregate, like we could put one in the clubhouse at Tally Ho.
And the library.
So people, and the library. And, you know, we can look at all the places where people congregate and put notices there, so everybody will see them. We'll even put one in Kelly and Company. And
Victoria,
people, they're here to...
one quick comment I'd like to share is
Okay.
Guys,
Shh. Settle down.
One quick comment I'd like to share at this time as your tax collector, your town clerk. I've received the 50 and 60 phone calls. I've gotten bombarded with emails. Many of our residents are unaware that we have a fire district that consists of 5 commissioners for both Amenia and for Wassaic. I've had the opportunity to speak with your neighbors who have realized that now there's also a district that is now being charged called the Amenia Free Library. And it's unfortunate tonight I'm going to report that that resident that called me was unaware that they could go to the library for free and sign out books and utilize that resource. And she honestly thought by her paying the $51.51 that she now can walk into that library and utilize that resource. Many residents have called me and kept asking me, who are the 5 members that are on these commissions? And I think it's important that all of us take the opportunity to understand what local government has. Our job duties, our job descriptions. One of the comments that I had with Jeff earlier today, I thanked him for the first time in my 4th election sitting before this public that him as a commissioner contacted me and said, hey, listen, this is what's going on, this is why. Well, thanks, Jeff, and I thanked him, but you should have called me 10 days ago because I've already taken 50 phone calls giving out your phone number because I didn't have the correct answer to give because I'm not your secretary. So the open door and the open communication, I think it is important. Each of you have communicated among each other, among social media. You get to all see the comments because we're all friends. But take the opportunity to walk to your neighbors. Go to the left and go to the right and ask them if they know and if they can identify who those 5 commissioners are. Whether you're in Amenia or Wassaic, Ask them who your town board members are. Ask them if they know who, your county legislators are and your representatives are. Because we get here because of your votes. Those 5 commissioners are elected officials. And I think we need to understand how they get into those places and their responsibilities. And one of the things I did ask Jeff was, if you're going to do a flyer, we can work together, explain to the public what each of the elected positions do. What is the responsibility of the Board of Fire Commissioners? Who are they? What's the difference between a fire commissioner and a fire company? So I think there are some questions out there that we all have to look at and realize how come we've come to where we've come. I commend the board over the last couple of years trying to get this information. Vicki Doyle sitting here next to me, she's told me time and time again, I don't understand. So now it's the responsibility of these commissions and these boards to share what we do. And Jeff's welcomed me down to Wassaic, said come in and see what we have to do because their district and their company runs completely different than Amenia. So, how are we letting everybody know? Jeannie, last 10 years I've been working with you. It's the same bulletin board. It's call me. We go over and beyond what is required. The reorganizational meeting, we posted when our meetings are. And we got a phone call today asking me when our meetings are in February. And those dates are set by the calendar, 1st and 3rd. It's not going to change. The meetings have been set and established. The agendas, the town board for the past 10 years that I've been here has gone over and beyond. It is not required by statute that we post the agenda. But the supervisor's office works very hard to ensure that the public gets the agenda on Mondays, which is not required. All we have to do is notice the meeting. They went ahead, they prepared the agendas, that way everybody knows what the topics are. Individuals were kind enough to put this document on Facebook to share that with us so we know what the agendas are and when to come in, what to listen. So, we are working our hardest, and as your town clerk, that's my job to notice all of this information. I'm being asked, who's going to send these notices out to all the public. I'm doing what's required by the board. Gretchen's going to go over and beyond and set us up with emails, but that's her tech savvy. But I just want to stress you guys to please go to your neighbors, walk to the house next door and have that verbal conversation and express to them, do you know who they are? Because the library, please go to it. Visit the library, visit the firehouses. Support us. Come to our pancake breakfast. Support the carnivals. Support the events that you see. You're driving down the road and you see what's going on. Join us. Get to know who we are, because we're your volunteers. Brad was actually next, and then
Thank you. Brad Rebellard, I'm in the Wassaic Fire District, and I'm a volunteer. I've been volunteering for several organizations for several years, and I have no gripes whatsoever for any volunteer. And I really don't want to speak about the problem right now. I want to speak a little bit towards the solution. We're seeing the problem. It's been well talked about. And I'm seeing it in Millerton right now with the plaza closing and people losing jobs because even though there was a local outcry to keep the plaza open, an outside group came in and basically shut it down. And they put it in a situation where it looks terrible and everybody doesn't like it and people are losing jobs. Now I'm seeing it happen in Amenia right now. The bottom line is this: you can't keep doing things the way you're doing. The expenses are going up and there's less people to pay them. It's easy math. Now we have a project right here in town that's trying to get in, and here we go again. Spearheaded by an outside organization. They're not even taxpayers in Amenia. They're trying to shut it down. I think Arlene Uniano would have said, "Wake up, people." So that's my public comment.
Sir.
Okay, did you want to speak? Go ahead.
Alfred Lippincott.
Could you go to the podium?
Alfred
Thank you.
Lippincott is my name, on Tower Hill Road down in Wassaic. And I just wanted to be clear about EMT services for Amenia proper is part of the town budget? Is that correct?
No.
No. Who pays for the EMT services of
We're 100% volunteer.
100% volunteers?
So your support of the pancake breakfast helps us.
So it's not clear to me why the whole town didn't want to participate wouldn't participate in the problems with Wassaic.
They can't because there was no mechanism for them to. You have to have an ambulance district to cover the whole town. And we did not have that mechanism in our budget.
So Amenia proper has an ambulance volunteer service that is adequately working for that
Yes.
portion of the town, but Wassaic does not, and so
Well, Amenia, actually, the fire chief and the president of the Amenia Fire Company did call me, and we were planning to have meetings anyway before this tragedy happened, with this large contract, because there are times when Amenia is having trouble getting out during the day. So, there's different problems in different places, so we're trying to get a meeting of the minds and come up with a solution, with a contract that will address both towns.
all right. Well, it was very discouraging that it ended up being just a Wassaic problem when it really ought to have been a town-wide solution to the issue. And maybe it's worth stating that as in the southern part of the Wassaic, we're in the Dover Plains Free School District, which is a punishing school district, and so on top of the
I know they just have not done a reval, and I know it's painful.
on top of the huge pain of that increasing year after year, as someone pointed out, to get this, it's just an incredible double whammy, and it's very, very discouraging.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Donnie?
Don Cummings, Wassaic, New York. I just want to say the gentleman just spoke about the project down the road here. There was a study done, and I believe the town board members got it last year, the year before. Just in the fire tax alone, once that's up and running, is going to be very high. So our budgets, by the time this takes place, should pretty much, the money that's going to be generated from Silo Ridge will pay for our fire tax. I just want people to know that. I mean, there's a lot of hearsay in this, it's not going to work and all that stuff, but there again, you got to get behind projects like this. This is 1 in a million. And there's people in this town that are fighting tooth and nail for not having it. But the people that are fighting against it, you don't see them at the fire companies. You don't see them at the pancakes, or you don't see them in Tractor Supply. You don't see them anywhere. We are the poor people here. We're trying to make ends meet. You hear them all speaking. Everybody's upset. You got to get behind a project like that and go with it. And you have to trust the people that are spending billions of dollars almost on this project that they're going to do well. That money that's going to be generated from there is going to help us with the fire taxes. Thank you.
Keep your eye on the road.
Keep your eye on the road.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Public comment? No? Okay, supervisor's report.
Last time you had 50 people
That's
here.
it, just go.
Stay. Stay.
What's up? Are you voting on
Okay, part of my supervisor's report were a lot of, to let you know what is happening and what we are working on planning to do. The other thing I wanted to mention is that County Executive Molinaro announced at the supervisors and mayors meeting that I attended last Thursday that the county will be looking at advanced life support ambulance service issues for the whole county, as the lack of volunteers is a problem in other areas. So the county is going to take a good hard look at this and see what they can do to help the towns going forward. One of the other things we had, they spoke about at the meeting on, it was actually the reorganization meeting for the Dutchess County Supervisors and Mayors Association, was New York State Executive Law Article 2B, the responsibility of the chief elected official would be me. They went over, you know, if we have to call a state of emergency and, you know, during what, you know, what has to be in place before you could actually do that. There's an interstate mutual aid program that's a statewide program where communities are allowed to help each other in times of emergency. But what I was particularly interested in, they have a citizen preparedness program, and I'm looking to schedule one here. They actually come out, tell you how to prepare for an emergency and actually give you some things to help you during an emergency situation. So once I get more information on that and look at a date that we will be able to have that here, that will be able to help people when, you know, when there is emergency situation. Okay. Town clerk report.
Do you want to introduce resolution number 4? You want me to start my report off with that? Town board practices signing the...
Well, if you want to do that, go ahead.
Okay. So I'd like to first start off my report with presenting resolution number 4 of 2016, revising town board practice regarding signatures on resolutions of the town board. I do believe that Denise circulated it. I can't read it. I can't.
Well, I can read it. It's resolution number
4.
Revising town board practice regarding signatures on resolutions of town board, whereas it been the practice of the town board of the town of Amenia for a number of years to have town board members sign resolutions adopted by the town board, whereas this practice of the town board has become impracticable and at times burdensome. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby revises such practice and policy with respect to resolutions adopted by the town board, that henceforth effective January 21st, 2016, signatures of town board members need not be affixed to resolutions adopted by the town board. I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
I'm sorry, since this wasn't sent out by noon on Monday, did we vote to?
Monday was a holiday. Nobody was here.
Yeah, so it wasn't also sent out on Thursday prior to, so based on the motion from our last meeting, did we vote to have this come up before us? Because this also didn't come in until late, I noticed.
Is there a vote?
Based on our motion from the last meeting, I don't believe I can.
Is that a no or an abstention? I just want to make sure I mark it correctly.
I guess it would have to be an abstain.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
You can pass that down. Okay, so good evening again. I'd like to re-announce that the 2016 tax collection has begun. A few minors that I've been asked is that you do not leave your tax payments in the outside mailbox. There is a mailbox in the building located right outside of my door. It's not secure by leaving it in the exterior mailbox. I am working with the supervisor at this time to see if we can get a mailbox secured to the exterior part of the building. I know that individuals over the years have left items in the mailbox, and it was brought to my attention recently that there were some items left overnight, and we just want to ensure that we receive your correspondences in a timely fashion. Taxes are due whether or not you've received your bill. If you pay your taxes and it's not through your bank escrow and you have not received your bill, you may print them off at this time by visiting our website at www.ameniany.gov or by calling the town clerk's office, and we can give you your amount due. That's over the phone. Town clerk's report. Monthly town share for the month of December has been remitted to the town supervisor in the amount of $231.75. The local share for our DEC sales for this year was remitted to the town supervisor in the amount of $582.32. Just as a fun fact, the town clerk's office collected $11,042 in DEC sales, so we were down by $45, so that's approximately one transaction less than the year prior. The minutes of December 17th and December 4th's reorganizational meeting has been circulated to the board. Has the board had the opportunity to review those minutes, and are you ready to vote? And I'm asking if you are, if we can present them separately, because we have a new board member.
I'll make the motion that we accept the minutes of Thursday, December 17th, 2015, town board meeting minutes.
Second.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Aye.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Abstain.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
And the November.
I'll make a motion to accept January 4th, 2016 for the town board reorganizational meeting.
Second.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Aye.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Also, during the month of December, we passed a bond resolution. Due to that bond resolution not being properly circulated in the papers, at this time I'm requesting that we re-approve that same resolution. I spoke with bond counsel, and that was the suggestion that he had made. Unfortunately, with December 31st, them not having a paper and everything not signed in time, it wasn't circulated correctly. So it's the exact same bond resolution.
Will be resolution
5.
At a regular meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Amenia, Dutchess County, New York, held at Town Hall in Amenia, New York, in said town on the 21st day of January 2016 at 7:00 p.m. prevailing time. The meeting was called to order by Supervisor Perotti, and upon roll being called, there were people
All were present.
All were present.
No absence.
The following resolution was offered by, I make that motion.
I'll second it.
Bond resolution dated January 21st, 2016, a resolution authorizing, subject to permissive referendum, the construction of improvements to the town hall heating system in and for the town of Amenia, Dutchess County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $1,111,000, and authorizing the issuance of $1,111,000 bonds of said town to pay the costs thereof. Whereas all conditions precedent to the financing of the capital project hereinafter described, including compliance with the provisions of the State Environmental Quality Review Act as a Type 2 action, have been performed. Whereas it is now desired to authorize such capital and its financing, now therefore be it resolved by the Town Board of the Town of Amenia, Dutchess County, New York, as follows. Section 1, the construction of improvements to the town hall heating system and replacement of the existing system, including related reconstruction of portions of said building and addition of a generator, as well as original furniture, equipment, machinery, apparatus, purchases, and incidental improvements and expenses in connection therein, in and for the town of Amenia, Dutchess County, New York, is hereby authorized, subject to permissive referendum, at a maximum estimated cost of $1,111,000. The plan for the financing of the aforesaid maximum estimated cost is by the issuance of $1,100,000 bonds of said town, hereby authorized to be issued therefore pursuant to the provisions of local finance law. Section 3, it is hereby determined that the period of probable usefulness of the aforesaid specific object or purpose is 25 years, pursuant to subdivision 12A, paragraph A of section 11 of the local finance law. It is hereby further determined that the maximum maturity of the bonds herein authorized will exceed 5 years. Section 4, the faith and credit of said Town of Amenia, Dutchess County, New York, are hereby irrevocably pledged for the payment of the principal and interest in such bonds as the same respectively become due and payable. An annual appropriation shall be made in each year sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on such bonds becoming due and payable in such year unless paid from other revenues. There shall annually be levied on all taxable real property of said town a tax sufficient to pay the principal of and interest on such bonds as the same become due and payable. Section 5, subject to the provisions of the local finance law, the power to authorize the issuance of and to sell bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance and sale of the bonds herein authorized, including renewals of such notes, is hereby delegated to the supervisor of said town, the chief fiscal officer. Such notes shall be of such terms, form, and contents, and shall be sold in such manner as may be prescribed by said supervisor, consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 6, all other matters except as provided herein relating to the bonds herein authorized, including the date, denominations, maturities, and interest payment dates, within the limitations prescribed herein, and the manner of execution of the same, including the consolidation with other issues, and also the ability to issue bonds with substantially level or declining annual debt service, shall be determined by the supervisor, the chief fiscal officer of such town. Such bonds shall contain substantially the recital of validity clause provided for in section 52 of the local finance law, and shall otherwise be in such form and contain such recitals in addition to those required by section 51 of the local finance law, as the supervisor shall determine consistent with the provisions of local finance law. Section 7, the validity of such bonds and bond anticipation notes may be contested only if 1, such obligations are authorized for an object or purpose for which said town is not authorized to expend money, or the provisions of law which should be complied with at the date of publication of this resolution are not substantially complied with. And an action, suit, or proceeding contesting such validity is commenced within 20 days after the date of such publication. 3, such obligations are authorized in violation of the provisions of the Constitution. Section 8, the resolution shall constitute a statement of official intent for purposes of Treasury Regulations, Section 1.150-2. Other than as specified in this resolution, no monies are or reasonably expected to be reserved, allocated on a long-term basis, or otherwise set aside with respect to the permanent funding of the object or purpose described herein. Section 9, upon the resolution taking effect, the same shall be published in full or summary form in the official newspaper of said town for such purpose, together with a notice of the town clerk in substantially the form provided in Section 81 of local finance law. Section 10, this resolution is adopted subject to permissive referendum. The question of the adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly put to a vote on a roll call, which resulted as follows.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Abstain.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
No.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Motion carries. Also in the packet that I've distributed this evening, we've received one application for volunteering. Lorenzo has checked all of the boxes.
I'll make a motion that we accept Lorenzo Sicanolfi to the CAC board as recommended by our CAC members at our last meeting last night.
Second?
You don't want to interview him? You don't want to give the board the opportunity to interview?
He's already been interviewed once. He's also on the housing board.
Well, I don't think, he was, I guess, technically interviewed by our town board. By our, at our CAC meeting, I think.
And he's been
expressed a lot of
interviewed
interest.
for other committees, too. I just don't know why we have to interview him twice if we've already interviewed him once.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
No, I think we should interview him, so no.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi?
Yes.
Motion passes. Also, this evening, I'm presenting the December vouchers in the amount of $60,107.43 and the January vouchers in the amount of $36,132.32, and I'm seeking authorization to be given for payment of each of these claimants. And they're in your packets, the copies of the voucher abstract. Big
It's in our minutes,
The
right?
big strip that says town clerk
Yeah,
report.
Right. There it is.
Isn't that nice? Trying to remember the other. I'll help you out.
All right, there's the beginning.
There's two separate abstracts. One is for December and one is for January.
So you are looking, we need to approve the vouchers dated, included in this abstract dated December 27th, 2015. I make a motion that we certify that the vouchers on this abstract, consisting of 9 pages, were audited and allowed the amounts shown. Prepaids in the amount of $20,230.72. From December 15th, $39,876.71, for a total of $60,107.43.
January.
Okay, so for prepaids, we had $16,311.05. January 16th, $19,821.27, for a total of $36,132.32.
Second?
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Yes. I mean, aye.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Prodi?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. And the last announcement that I do have this evening is I'd like to announce the next blood drive here at the Amenia Town Hall is going to be February 18th. If anybody's wishing to sign up for a specific time, it is between 2 and 8. You're welcome to call the town clerk's office and schedule a time. Thank you.
Is that the end of your report?
That is the end of my report.
Okay, Highway Department report. Stan was unable to be here tonight. He gave a written report. He said there's nothing major to report. We have had a couple of minor breakdowns which have been repaired. We have done some stump grinding and brush clearing. The tree crew is due in next week, weather permitting, for trees on Depot Hill and Deep Hollow. You have received our highway payroll report as of January 1st, 2016. You will be receiving these reports quarterly. There were no carryover hours from 2015-16. If you have any questions or concern, please feel free to call me. And then we have a building report. Town board members, please find December's monthly report for the building department as building permits go. We have issued 7 new building permits totaling $825 and 1 renewal permit of $175. We are continuing with certificate of occupancy searches, and for this month we did 6 searches which totaled $750. As far as fire inspections go, we did 3 fire inspections which totaled $420. The total for the month was $2,175. There is no grant report. Are there any other committee reports?
I have a committee report for the Fountain Square Committee. We met on last Tuesday, here at the town hall, and we went over the fact that we'd like to see a permanent tree planted where the Christmas tree was secured at Fountain Square, ideally the same tree that we planted in across from the Lantern Inn. That's a slow-growing black forest.
This is enhancement?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
basically Fountain Square is what we decided to call
What you
it.
discussed, okay.
And we talked about the brickwork that still is broken and needs to be repaired. We're working with Darlene on that. And we are looking at trying to get the highway, maybe the county, the state safety fellow to come out and tell us about 2 signs that we think are not placed in a strategic place right across from Fountain Square. And one is Adopt a Highway sign that's not advertising any group, but could be put maybe on the outskirts of town instead of right there at Four Brothers, adding to the visual clutter. And then another sign that is long ago, the actual sign is gone, but it's across catty corner from Four Brothers, where Orrington, where the little antique shop was, right on the corner. There's an old remnant of a sign about 13 feet high that needs to be removed. It doesn't have a sign, it's just the vestige of it. And if we could get some support from the rest of the town board that those visual things should be removed and the Adopt a Highway sign moved to a less important place.
Would that be DOT?
I think it would be...
The state?
What was his name?
Chuck Walters?
Chuck Walters. I thought I would start there.
Yeah.
And then ask
Well, you
him
have his
who.
email address, don't you?
Mhm.
Okay.
And that there was an encouragement to plant lots of flowers in, ideally red, white, and blue, in time for Memorial Day, and we would encourage the town to do a planting day again, as we have on the Memorial Day weekend, to get volunteers out to really try and get more flowers in the barrels out in time for that. So that would be May 28th, I believe, is that Saturday. Has always been traditionally planting day, and we'd like to renew that tradition. That's it for that. We also met with the CAC last night and reviewed the EAF that was submitted by the Bolfamonte application. And it's about 13 pages long. We have some notes and eager to share when it comes up to that time to review that. We talked about critical environmental areas that have been designated in Dutchess County. It could be of prominent historical, cultural, natural resources, or it could be of areas that are of concern. And the only one in Amenia is the Sarney site, which was an inactive landfill with toxic pollutants present. We think that there could be some recommendations from the town that would encourage preservation of things like the beehive kilns, for instance. Those are a wonderful amenity that if we could designate them of a critical environmental area that has of great historic, cultural importance to the town of Amenia, that would help protect it if somebody bought that little slip of land and then wanted to tear them down to build something else. So it's a thought that perhaps we could recommend a few areas like that, that the town would be perhaps moved to add them to this list for Dutchess County. We did go over a whole list of things, but we talked about the old Amenia landfill and the idea of having hours posted, whether or not bikes are going to be allowed, dogs, walk, definitely passive. Those are the things that were recommended in the site plan the document that the DEC is finalizing. I believe it's called the Site Plan Management.
Site management plan.
Site Management Plan.
Yeah,
So
we'll be getting that sent to us.
at the very end of that draft document was a small discussion of the passive recreational uses that they would allow, and how that's going to be managed and maintained over the next 30 years by the town of Sharon. So we just went over that. We went over the whole, I think that was mostly at Old Amenia landfill, the critical environmental areas, Bulpamonte, and the composting. That's what we did.
Okay, we don't have the historian. We have a resolution for the presentation that we had today about the watershed. I didn't know if you were prepared to vote on that, or did you want to think about it, or you can just let me know what you want to do.
It's the second time they were before us. We voted on it once.
Actually, we didn't.
Yes, we did last year. They had the same resolution.
I didn't think we voted. I know everybody wanted to think about it. Well, we did, maybe we did vote it, but, so do you want to vote on? Do you want to do anything with that, or you just want to table it?
I mean, Vicki, what do you think about it? I mean, this is your avenue.
I've been to those meetings that Tonya talked about, and Victoria and I went to the last one in Dover, and I was very impressed with the, what do you call it, the Wappingers Creek group that banded together, and they have been doing great things in the Wappingers Creek watershed. It's WIC, and I thought that if we had any reservations, they had a great slide presentation that was done by 2 volunteers who just talked about how they got formed, why they were formed, the grants that they got, what the projects were that they were involved in, and it sounded really helpful, because a lot of the same issues to me are faced by Amenia, and there's lots of grants that I had been reading about anyway that they were getting for, particularly for areas like enlarging culverts or planning or trying to figure out where the hot spots were for flooding. I was very interested in it from a flooding point of view, because Wassaic has flooding issues from time to time. We have serious flooding issues, and I thought it would be helpful if we needed professional expertise to take a look at our sections where we have had problems, to give a sense of where the little bottlenecks are, that we could start planning and figuring out what it would take to make people who live right on the creek a little feeling that we're addressing it, that we understand what's causing the periodic flooding, and how we can get grants to help ameliorate. If it means a bigger culvert at a strategic place, let's go for it. And Dover will be happier, we'll be happier, everybody will live happily ever after. I don't see any downsides. I just see that collaboration is very helpful, and I think our partners are in a great place. Katie Palmer House spoke eloquently at that last meeting, and I don't understand why we didn't pass it right then and there personally, but later talking to WIC people, I thought perhaps if anybody had reservations, if they wanted to come to the next meeting, I don't know if the watershed, what is it's the Wappinger Intermunicipal Council, is that what it stands for, WIC? They were lovely people who did a great job.
The Wappingers Intermunicipal Council, and it has 13 different towns, including Poughkeepsie, who all are members.
And they've been going for what?
They've been going for 10 years. They are facilitated by Cornell Cooperative Extension under Dutchess County Environment Program.
And I would say, just off the top of my head, I think they've gotten $500,000, this little group of volunteers, to do very specific things that have done great things in those various towns to deal with flooding. And that's just from my 2 cents, practical, reasonable, nobody's property rights were infringed upon. It was just collaboration. What's the problem? How can we help? Because when I went, just personally, when I was running for office and going door to door, there were 3 homeowners that said, we live in fear of, we watch the water going. If it rains for 2 days, they start getting, nervous about what their plans are. Why not, study it? Is it from silting in? Is it from a beaver dam up water? I don't know how to respond to them, but I do think that there are resources out there that we can get once we form this intermunicipal council. And if Dover's already done it and Millerton, I mean, are we not, what have we got to lose?
Yeah, and we
That's
do
my
have
question.
another roundtable next week, so it's here, and people can come and talk and just brainstorm and find out what everybody is saying. This is sort of the wave of the future, is people are working together regionally. There's a lot of carrots for shared services, which you already know about, for sharing, large equipment and other things. The county looks very fondly on this. You get a lot of kudos for working together as towns regionally in many areas. So this is an obvious win-win for everybody, I think.
Does anybody else need more time to hear from other communities that have done similar intermunicipal councils?
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept resolution number 6. You ready to is it okay if I read it?
Sure can.
This is called the 10 Mile River Collaborative Watershed Management. At a meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Amenia held at the Amenia Town Hall on the 21st day of 2016 at 7 p.m., Town Supervisor Victoria Perotti called the meeting to order, and Vicki Doyle offered the following resolution, which was seconded by Councilperson.
I'll second.
Damian seconded, who moved its adoption. Whereas the severe weather events of 2006, 2007, 2011, and 2012 have illustrated the need for proactive management of water resources for flood damage prevention and water quality protection, and whereas where water exists in watersheds that extend beyond municipal borders and water resource management issues such as flooding and water quality protection are best addressed at a watershed scale, and whereas there is a growing interest amongst watershed municipalities, county resource agencies, and watershed nonprofits in pursuing watershed-wide collaborative management in the 10 Mile River watershed, and whereas watershed-wide collaborative management can allow watershed communities to access funding and technical support that would not be available otherwise, including but not limited to watershed planning and implementation programs administered by New York State Department of State, Division of Coastal Resources. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Amenia supports ongoing efforts to collaboratively manage the 10 Mile River watershed for flood damage prevention, water quality protection, and stewardship of natural resources, and intends to participate in future collaborative watershed management activities, including but not limited to the formation of a 10 Mile Watershed Council to guide watershed planning and management.
Supervisor
Discussion?
I'd like to see something in here that states that this is fine and dandy, but we have no intention to give up any rights for the town. And I don't see that in there, and that makes me very uncomfortable.
They had a line like that, to that effect, in the Wappingers resolution, actually, because this topic was discussed at length there, that people had the same concerns, and they did add
A caveat?
a line. Yep. I don't recall what it said.
Did your sample one include a caveat?
This is what. I mean, I suppose you could write something in at the end that, this resolution in no way constitutes the forfeiture of any individual property rights.
Are you comfortable with that? Or?
Not just property rights, but the rights of the town.
Homeland rule, I think, is what she's hoping that to get in there, that this does not limit the town's homeland, a home rule.
So you want to add that to what we already discussed, or you don't want the individual property rights, or what?
I think you were talking about, you didn't want this to supersede home rule, our ability to continue to govern our town of Amenia. I think it's less about property rights and more about the home.
Under the home rule law.
Right.
Yeah, but I think Denise brings up a good point with property rights as well.
So do you want to write this in now, or do you want to have this amended?
No, write it in now and then we can vote on it.
All right. So this resolution, stop me if you want something different. This resolution in no way constitutes any forfeiture of any rights of the town of Amenia under the home rule law or any other statute.
You want to read it back to us?
Or
She wanted private property rights protected as well.
so this resolution in no way constitutes any forfeiture of any rights of the town of Amenia under the home rule law or any other statute, or the forfeiture of any individual property rights. Is that okay with you?
Okay, I so amend that motion with that inclusion, guaranteeing that our rights to home rule haven't been compromised and private property owners also would not be, those rights would not be compromised.
I'll second that again.
Supervisor Prodi?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Hitzelberger?
Yes.
Aye. Councilman Delango?
Yes.
And Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you feel about voting on the Cablevision resolution?
I thought the conditions that that Damien suggested by making it conditional, the adoption of that resolution conditional upon the
Sort of
the capping of the rates for 2 years. I mean, is that just completely pie in the sky? Is that possible to?
You have your contract already. The contract is expired when?
2019.
So you're under your contract already.
But
I mean, there's some regulation, I mean, I cited some of the provisions in the email that I sent under the contract where, you know, there is oversight of the Public Service Commission and the FCC. How they regulate the rates, I really don't know. But that's what your existing contract, you know, states. I think if you put the conditions in,
it's going to make it moot.
They may deem it a denial. But that's up to you. I mean, if you deny it or don't make a decision on it, then that 120-day period is going to kick in.
Okay.
And that's going to expire, my calculation was March 1st, if the letter was received on November 2nd.
But no, we discussed 120 days a couple meetings ago, and they said that that doesn't apply anymore because we already voted no on this resolution.
No, I mean, that was rescinded. That first resolution was rescinded. I mean, you declined, the first time it came around, it was, I think you declined to approve it.
We voted no on the resolution.
And then that was rescinded at Mr. Connor's request at the subsequent meeting.
I
It was
I
rescinded.
remember something when Mr. Connors was here, he said the 120 days doesn't apply anymore because we
I don't
took
agree
action
with
on it already.
I don't agree with it. It was rescinded. I mean, that resolution was rescinded at his request.
But is it, I'm asking you a question, does that constitute, is he correct in saying?
No, I
because-
disagree with him. First of all, he requested that it be rescinded, and the board did rescind it. So it doesn't exist. So under the contract, the board has not denied it. It hasn't granted it at this point. So if you don't act within the 120 days, then it's deemed consent is granted.
So your recommendation is that we go ahead and accept it as it is, to at least have the document that you've prepared
I'm not going
on
to
our
recommend
behalf.
that. I mean, it's up to the board if you want to do that. You could simply let the 120 days go by, and then it's deemed as
Right,
granted.
that's just default mode, yeah.
So you haven't affirmatively consented to it. You've not acted under the existing contract. It says that, it's deemed that consent is given. This isn't holding this up, in my opinion, because when I spoke to the Public Service Commission, they didn't anticipate acting on this or making a decision until the end of April. But, it's up to the board whether you want to affirmatively grant the consent to this, or you just want to sort of acquiesce by not approving or not denying. The issue that was raised earlier on service not being provided to certain people, there are provisions in that renewal contract about that. I think it was like either 150 feet from the trunk line, or there was something about the 25 households, but the residents, if they want to contribute to the cost of extending the line, there is a provision in there for that. I mean, it's just that they would have to pay money to extend a line to their area.
We've had the public
I make a
hearing.
motion that we vote on the real resolution as it is.
So too.
There's a second.
Members,
I'll second, is that your motion?
That's
That we
my
go
motion.
ahead and vote on it? I'll second it.
Resolution number 7.
The motion is to vote on it, not to vote on the resolution,
Right.
just to be clear. Yes? That's what you said, Mike? You said you wanted to make a motion to
To vote on the resolution as it is.
So now we're going to decide whether or not we're going to vote. Okay, thank you.
Resolution granting application of Cablevision Systems Corporation, Cablevision System, Duchess Corporation, for consent of the Town of Amenia as franchising authority to transfer of control of cable television franchise, whereas the Town of Amenia previously entered into a franchise renewal agreement with Cablevision Systems, Duchess Corporation, which franchise renewal agreement was executed by the town supervisor on February 26, 2009, which franchise agreement was approved by the New York State Public Service Commission by order approving renewal issued effective August 28, 2009, which franchise agreement has a term of 10 years from August 28, 2009. Whereas Cablevision Systems Duchess Corporation operates and maintains a cable television system in the town of Amenia, New York, pursuant to the aforesaid franchise agreement, whereas by letter dated October 30, 2015, Cablevision Systems Corporation submitted to the town FCC Form 394, application for franchise authority consent to assignment or transfer of control of cable television franchise, whereby Cablevision Systems Corporation, as the represented owner of 100% of the ownership interest in Cablevision Systems Dutchess Corporation, has requested the town's consent pursuant to the terms of the existing franchise agreement to a transfer of control of the cable television franchise in the town of Amenia through the merger by agreement and plan of merger among Cablevision Systems Corporation, Altice NV, and Neptune Merger Subgroup, dated September 16, 2015. Whereas the existing franchise agreement provides that no change in control or assignment of franchisee or this franchise shall occur without the prior written consent of the municipality, which consent shall not be unreasonably withheld or delayed, and that if the municipality fails to render a final decision on the request for a change of control or assignment within 120 days after receipt by the municipality, such request shall be granted unless the franchisee and the municipality jointly agree in writing to an extension of time. Whereas the existing franchise agreement further provides that in the event the municipality refuses to grant the aforementioned petition, shall set forth the specific reasons for its decision in writing by municipal resolution. Whereas the town board has determined by resolution dated December 17, 2016, that approval, disapproval, or no action by the town board on the requested consent is a type 2 action exempt from further review under the requirements of seeker pursuant to 6 NYCRR 617.5 C26, whereas by resolution dated December 17, 2016, the town board scheduled a public hearing at the request of Cablevision System Corporation to be held on January 21st, 2016 at 7 p.m., and directed that notice of said public hearing be published in the official newspaper of the town by the town clerk at least 10 days before such hearing. Whereas the notice of public hearing on January 21st, 2016 at 7 o'clock was published on
January 7th
January 7th,
of this year.
2016 in the official newspaper of general circulation in the town of Amenia, namely the Millerton News, by the town clerk, whereas said public hearing was held by the town board on January 21st, 2016 at 7 p.m. in accordance with said notice of public hearing, and the town board heard the comments of all interested persons at that time, whereas the town board has reviewed the application of Cablevision Systems Corporation, followed required procedures to consider the same, and considered the comments of all interested party. Now therefore be it resolved by the town board of the town of Amenia that, one, the town as a franchise authority grants the application of Cablevision Systems Corporation as the represented owner of 100% of the ownership interest in Cablevision System Dutchess Corporation, consents to the transfer of control from cable television franchise in the town of Amenia through the merger by agreement and plan of merger among Cablevision Systems Corporation, Altice NV, and Neptune Merger Subcorp, dated September 16, 2015, through this resolution shall be deemed effective as of the date of its adoption.
There are just two corrections, page 1 at the bottom, where it refers to the resolution of December 17. It should be 2015 instead of 16.
Okay.
The last two paragraphs.
Okay.
Okay, make that motion with...
Well, I think we have a previous motion already on the table from Mike and seconded by Vicky to whether or not we were going to vote on the resolution as it is.
Have to amend that. I want to vote on the resolution as it is with the correction of 2015.
I'll second that.
Supervisor Perotti?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
And this is the vote to vote, so
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
And Councilman Delango?
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 8 of 2016, transfer of funds for January 2016.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
Where's the vote for resolution number 7? Because this was a vote to vote on the resolution, not the vote of the resolution.
He amended his motion.
Yeah, he amended it to say as it is with correction, to vote on the resolution, but not the resolution itself.
I mean, I wanted to vote on the resolution, to accept the resolution.
And I seconded that intent.
Yes, was there
That's just the
a
way you
complete
phrased
vote on
it.
that?
That's why I
Oh, we're
asked
doing it
3
now.
times.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Mike made a motion with the intent to go ahead and vote on this document as it is presented. He literally said, vote as it is. Gretchen then intervened and asked you, is that what we are voting on, the vote to vote? Everybody said yes. You went ahead and you read the resolution aloud, and then now you're making a motion to go ahead and make that motion, but then that's when Mike intervened and says that's what he means. He's trying to accept this resolution as it is. So
Okay.
Gretchen's trying to point out, he made a statement and it wasn't as clear. She did not understand that he was talking about this document. She was calling him on his words.
And so what do we have to do? Do we have to vote
It
again?
is understood that you are looking to vote on this motion as it's been read.
Is that good?
And if you want to see a second roll call, roll call.
Well, I thought I
You
was
call.
voting on to vote, so,
You want to do a second roll call?
yeah.
Go ahead, Supervisor. Go ahead, call the call. Call the roll, you can call the roll.
Will Supervisor Perotti, are you a yes still?
Yes.
Doyle is still a yes. Hitzelberger?
No.
She's a no. Gutierrez
Yes.
and DeLango?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, resolution number 8, I believe we're up to?
Yes.
Okay. Transfer of funds for January 2016. Whereas the town board has the authority to transfer funds when necessary or unanticipated to amend the budget. Whereas the general fund budget line 1.016.204.01.12400 building CE snow removal requires an increase of $19,000. And general fund budget line 1.019.004.01.049.00 special items CE contingency requires a decrease of $19,000 for additional snow removal contract costs. Whereas the general fund budget line 1.036204.01.063.00 safety inspection CE mileage requires an increase of $2,000. And general fund budget line 1.036204.01.125.00 safety inspection CE maintenance and fuel requires a decrease of $2,000 as truck given back to Highway Department.
I'll second that. Did you make that as a motion?
Yes.
So she's made the motion, I'll second it.
We just need to change. Okay, no, we don't. Go ahead. We're good.
Supervisor Perotti,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger,
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez,
Yes.
Councilman Doyle,
Yes.
and Councilman Delanco.
Yes.
Okay, the last resolution we have is resolution number 9. Resolution authorizing the cost of preparation of a map, plan, and report regarding the establishment of an ambulance district. Whereas the ambulance and related emergency services have been provided to residents of the town of Amenia by the Amenia and Wassaic fire districts. Whereas the Wassaic Fire District has indicated there is an insufficient number of voluntary emergency medical technicians to provide ambulance and related emergency services within its district. Whereas the town has been informed that the Wassaic Fire District has contracted with a third party to provide ambulance and related emergency services within the Wassaic Fire District territory during 2016 for the approximate amount of $500,000. Whereas complaints have been made by town residents to the town concerning costs to be imposed upon the taxpayers within the Wassaic Fire District to pay for such ambulance and related emergency services. Whereas at the request of the Wassaic Fire District and some residents of the Wassaic Fire District, the town board wishes to investigate and possibly assist in the provision of ambulance and related emergency services and in the procurement of adequate funding for such services and any necessary improvements, and believes that the establishment of an improvement district pursuant to New York State Town Law, Article 12A, may be an appropriate vehicle for procurement of future funding for such a district. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Town Law, Section 209B, the sum not to exceed $3,500 is the estimate we got.
That's the estimate. There were two engineering outfits I did speak with that gave estimates. John Andrews at Rhode Soika said between $2,500 and $3,500, probably going to be on the higher end. And then I also spoke with Morris Associates, and they said around $3,500.
Is appropriated to pay the cost of preparing a map, plan, and report for the possible formation of an ambulance district as provided by Town Law Sections 209 and 209A for the provision of ambulance and related emergency services within the town. It is further resolved that pursuant to Town Law Section 209C, such map, plan, and report for possible formation of an ambulance district shall be prepared in such manner, in such detail, as required and appropriate to satisfy all requirements of Article 12A of the Town Law, and shall include, but not be limited to, as required, a map, description of the boundaries of the proposed district, any improvements proposed, the maximum amount proposed to be expended for any improvements, a plan for the district, a report of the proposed method of operation, a benefit assessment for the first year of operation, and cost of the district to the typical property and, if different, the typical one or two family home, and the proposed method of financing to be employed. Resolved that the town board shall utilize the services of
an engineering firm.
Okay. Engineering firm. To prepare such map, plan, and report within the limits of the amount appropriated therefore in this resolution, resolved that this resolution is determined to be subject to permissive referendum as provided by Town Law Sections 209B, 90 through 94, on General Municipal Law, Section 6C, shall not take effect until 30 days from the date hereof pursuant to Town Law Section 91, and no expenditure shall be made prior to expiration of said 30-day period, and no expenditure shall take place after said period if a petition has been duly filed pursuant to Town Law 91 without further action of this board. Can I make that motion?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Where would the $3,500 come from?
It would probably come from the contingency budget, but that $3,500 we would be reimbursed from the ambulance district once it's formed. It would be included.
Okay.
Because there would be an expense of forming it.
Supervisor Prodi?
Yes.
Councilman Doyle?
Yes.
Councilman Hitzelberger?
Yes.
Councilman Delango?
Yes.
And Councilman Gutierrez.
Yes.
Okay, you've been given the emergency operation plan. Basically, it's the same plan as last year. The only difference is there were elections of new officers for the fire department and commissions, so it was updated with the new names. So basically, what we need to do is just vote to accept the document with the updates.
Motion to table to allow the board time to read the document.
Is there a second?
all that has been done is simply substituted the names of the current people
From the fire department. What else? Is that about it, Dawn?
We changed.
Because you and Dawn and Tara worked on this.
The only change
Because
that
we
was-
have to do it every
The
year.
only change was Mark Christensen is now their fire chief in Waseek, and we added Frank Lansing as one of our new constables, and Tara just changed the emergency call down list. If you go to page 11-1.b, and we just verified everybody's phone numbers, and Mike Sugglekin is back and not John Benson.
Those were the changes.
And I believe on 11.5 it was Howie Kraft is your EMS coordinator. I don't know if we, and on that same page, Mark Christensen is our fire chief. So everywhere that it had John Kelleher, we had to switch it to Mark Christensen because of the elections at the fire department. But the contents of the actual document have been in place since March 27th of 2006. So none of the content was changed. It was literally just the phone numbers.
Gretchen, I'll second, just because I haven't,
Thank you.
I didn't read last year's version, so
Okay.
I want to go through it.
And for Bufamonte hydrogeologist proposal, I don't have a proposal. Apparently, the person who they thought was going to be able to do the work isn't able to do it. I have an email from Dave Everett that he spoke to John Andrews and Marianne Johnson after the planning board meeting last night. They've started to review the Bufamonte application, are recommending that the town board retain a hydrogeologist to provide input to the town board excuse me, on potential impacts of the project to the aquifer and groundwater resources. They have suggested, excuse me, that they town retain Chazen Engineering because they did the original aquifer, but since then, Chazen, subsequent emails said that Chazen, the hydrogeologist from Chazen does have a conflict, won't be able to work on the project. So John Andrews is contacting an associate. I just wanted to get approval from the board to hire, unless you want to wait until we get the actual proposal and vote on that. Okay. Because I'm not sure who that person will be right at this point, because that changed at the last minute. Other matters, the only thing I have other matters, I received a letter from the Weebatuck School District regarding the Town of Amenia baseball fields at Beekman Park. Dear Supervisor Perotti, again this year, Weebatuck Central School District would like to utilize the Town of Amenia baseball fields at Beekman Park for a baseball program. The Weebatuck baseball season starts during the first full week of April, with the last game in our schedule played on May 31st. Depending on when the weather clears, we hope to begin outdoor practice at the town fields by the end of March. Including practices, teams will use the fields almost every weekday. Games typically begin at 4:15 p.m. and run until approximately 6 o'clock p.m., while practices begin immediately after school and end just prior to 5 p.m. We are proposing that our facility staff will again take responsibility to line the fields with the town cutting the grass. We have enjoyed and very much appreciate the cooperation the baseball program at Weebatuck has received from the supervisor's office in the town. We look forward to another successful season. They also sent an insurance form, which I gave to the town clerk. So we would just need a motion to approve the Weebatuck baseball team using Beekman Park for their baseball program again this year.
I make a motion that we approve their request.
I'll second that.
Discussion?
Yes.
Does this interfere with our recreation baseball program?
No.
Christine's good with that?
No, they, last year, there wasn't any problem. They just, do the scheduling
Okay.
and work it out.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger? Aye. Councilman Delanco?
Yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
And Supervisor Prodi.
Yes. Okay, that's all I have for other matters. Does anyone else have anything else? Public comment? Town board comments?
I can get the time frame of the blood drive.
The blood drive is from 2 to 8.
Okay,
So,
on February 18th.
yes, it's our town board meeting night. Bring them in, take their blood,
Last
come to a
service.
meeting.
Eat some meat before you go if you're anemic.
I schedule around our meetings, that way
Yeah.
we can get them to come to.
2 to 8 p.m.
Just one note, this Sunday, the 24th, starting at 2:45 at Amenia Presbyterian, they're having their last service. They're going to be shutting their doors, sadly, after 250 years of service to the community. So if you can go out to join, that would be great. So again, it's 2:45, there's an organ concert, and then 3 p.m. is closing worship.
Are there any other town board comments?
I would just want to bring one thing up. Gretchen does have a point. On the last meeting, we did vote to get our stuff for the meeting on Monday. A lot of emails came in, a lot of stuff came in yesterday and today. I understand Monday was a holiday. It is helpful if we can try to get that meeting, that Monday deadline. It'll solve, I think, a lot of problems. We didn't read this report and everything else. It could have been passed tonight if we would have had it a little earlier. So I would just want to try to make sure we can get our information that we need by Monday, including the resolutions and stuff like that. So we're prepared, we can look at them, and we're ready to get business done when we sit down.
Yeah, the transfer of funds was actually sent out last Thursday, so we
Mhm.
had that ahead of time.
No, there was
But I
some
usually
things that
do
did.
that.
What is the deadline?
Monday at noon, prior to, the Monday prior to the meeting at noon.
So if it's anything after that that comes up, such as, like some of the stuff with the ambulance district, then it's going to go to the next meeting.
Well, actually,
We're going to discuss if
Oh,
it's...
no, we're not going
you know,
no,
we're
we're going
gonna
to discuss and see whether we want to do it that night.
But preferably, yes. It would be moved to the next meeting.
Denise, we're just trying to stop stuff coming in the day of, 2 hours, 3 hours before the meeting, so we can at least read.
Okay, but it's a matter of when I'm asked to do something and the research that has to be done. I mean, if
This
there's-
isn't directed to you, so don't get upset. I mean, it's
No,
just...
okay, I
think
wasn't
we
at the
need-
meeting.
I think we need, the information, we want to try to get the information beforehand, so we have it.
Right.
When we're in a discussion, no one could say, I can't vote on that, or I haven't looked at that, I
No, I
just got it.
understand.
And I just think it'll make the flow of the meeting go a lot easier. So,
Are there any other town board comments? I make a motion to go into executive session for attorney-client legal advice. Is there a second?
A second.
Councilwoman Hitzelberger?
Aye.
Councilman Delango?
yes.
Councilman Gutierrez?
Yes.
Councilwoman Doyle?
Yes.
Supervisor Prodi?